Alright, so I'm on the test server and I'm going to be checking out the new weapon Hornet. So, this is the description here. It is a missile weapon. Shoots bursts of 3 projectiles, similar to like Carbine, with a small delay between each burst. Yep. Each successful hit fills the status effect bar. When filled, the enemy is inflicted with the Venom status effect and takes damage over time. Venom damage bypasses personal mech shields and shield mods. I don't really know how that differs from the burn effect, because the burn effect also bypasses mods and shields and stuff like that. So, or at least I'm pretty sure it bypasses personal shields. I'm not sure. 5 meter radius, that's pretty small. Here's just the stats overall. So as opposed to Hellfire, which the burn damage doesn't actually increase as you upgrade the weapon, the Venom damage does, and that's good to see, because that means it's actually, it's more likely to be useful when you max it out. It's more likely to be worth upgrading, I should say. The radius stays 5 meters, but yeah, we have them just base level right here, rank 5 on a base level Aegis. Got a rank 4 legendary pilot here with some implants level 2. Here are the implants. There are 4 different implants for this weapon. So there's reload. This will give you 30% max. There is the Venom damage. This increases the damage dealt by the Venom effect. It does not increase the projectile damage. There is the mag size. 20% increase on the mag size. Now, for those of you who don't know, when you're stuck between a choice of mag size and reload speed gives better average DPS for the same percentage. So like 30% lower reload speed is better than 30% larger magazine. So your average DPS is slightly higher with the reload. But this is 20%. That's even worse. So there's even less of a reason to use the mag size implant on this. And then there's also epic and rare range implants here. So max range 23%. So that's interesting. I mean, the range is not bad as is, but that implant could possibly help you use it in a slightly different way. It's nice to have that option, honestly. So yeah, of course, no mods on here because it's only rank 4. But we're going to be trying out a few things starting with Aegis, and I'm just going to kind of give my thoughts on it. Okay, so we got this map. This is not a bad map because I can kind of keep my distance. I'll set this up here and then... Oh, that's interesting. It has homing projectiles, even though there's no mention of it having homing projectiles. Like, look at this. There is 0 mention of it having homing projectiles in the weapon description, by the way. So that's incredibly weird. Also, is it just me, or does it not look like it has radius at all? Or no, it does. Okay, it kind of looks like it has almost pod gun type of radius. Like that's what the visual effect is. Okay, so it takes 2 bursts to apply the effect. Good to know. He should die to it. No, he did not. That was kind of sad. Okay, so the DOT doesn't last very long. Good to know. Which kind of makes it even less useful, I'm not gonna lie. This man, he's coming for me, dude. He's coming for me. I'm not gonna be able to use this like a normal missile weapon. Even if I mean, the radius is small as is. Okay, maybe the mag size would be kind of nice to have, I don't know. This is a very interesting, it does not feel like a missile weapon. Like, keep in mind, this is a missile weapon, my guys. This does not feel like a missile weapon at all. Which, like, I mean, if they want to, like, mix things up, make something a little bit less Ow. Alright, so this is the only other one that I want to try before moving on to maxing them out. I want to see how it works on Lacewing. The fact that it's guided means that it might be pretty good on Lacewing, and it might be pretty good against Lacewing as well. Like, it could be a almost pod gun-ish weapon, but with homing above 100 meters, which could be huge for some things. I mean, just like as an arbitrary example, pod gun is a very nice weapon to be using competitively late game, just because it deals with Lacewing so effectively. But it only has homing at 100 meters and less. For some mechs, that's not a problem, like Solus. But for other mechs, like I would say Outlaw, it's not particularly good, because Outlaw really wants to stay as far back as it possibly can, and forcing you to get closer is not great. But this does not appear to have a maximum range for homing, so it might be pretty decent. But even still, can we just appreciate the fact that they made 2 missile weapons in a row that have a homing effect? That is wild. Alright, so same map. Let's see what we can do with this. It's not like necessarily the best map for Lacewing, but yeah. I mean, it really is. It's basically just a pod gun. Like, at first it kind of threw me off. But now that I'm like using it a little bit more, it's just a burst fire pod gun. But without the damage delay. Like, it has some amount of damage delay in the form of DOT. But it doesn't have the ability to, like, you know, do a really big explosion after a couple seconds, so Podgun's still superior in that way. The DPS of Podgun's probably still better, but, some benefits I can think of right off the bat for this— oh wow, okay, game lagged a little bit. Some benefits I can think of for this weapon right off the bat is, the homing range, as far as I'm aware— well, we can verify this. Yeah. Now, the homing range is infinite. Like, whatever the max range of the weapon is, that's also the homing range. And that's one of the downsides of Podgun, is that it only gets the homing at 100 meters, which makes it only really effective at 100 meters or less. This could be effective at longer than that, which could be really good competitively for certain builds. Like, off the top of my head, Podgun Outlaw is like a not— I used it for a while, but it has some very obvious downsides. Podgun is much better suited on other mechs, but Outlaw is not something that can easily stay that close. Like, Outlaw wants to get as far back as possible, so a weapon like this might actually be better. The triple fire thing will ensure that a decent burst of damage gets through, like if you hit. This is all assuming that the homing actually homes in on Lacewings. I assume that it does, but we won't know until I test it, or until I use it on the live server. It is very interesting. At first I thought it was really bad, kind of crap. I'm kind of liking it though, it's growing on me. I think it has some very interesting practical uses. Alright, so I have them maxed out on Tengu, because why not? And I got the infinite stealth build along with just the reload and the venom damage. And this is the last build that I'm going to run before I give my final thoughts. Alright, so my bots seem a little bit stronger now. But yeah, this weapon seems very interesting. I do kind of like it. Like, I didn't like it at first, but I do kind of like it. It seems like it could have some interesting applications, but I don't think it's going to be particularly strong. Like, the burst damage is not great. The venom damage is not great. And, okay. Hello. There we are. Nice. The reload time is not bad. It's actually pretty short. It has some benefits to Podgun, but like, I think for most situations, Podgun is just as good, if not better. Like, the only benefit that this has over Podgun is that it has longer homing range. Like, that's literally the only thing. So I don't think it's going to replace Podgun. And even if it did, Podgun is only something that, like, competitively, only a few people run. Like, it's really good, don't get me wrong. Probably a top 5 weapon. Not that that's, like, saying much, because most people only use, like, 2 different weapons in their competitive hangers, but even if it did replace Podgun, I don't even know if it would be worth getting it. Uh-oh. Yeah, the burst. It's interesting. It's a very interesting weapon. Also, keep in mind, this is a missile weapon, fellas. This is a missile weapon right here. This does not feel like a missile weapon at all. Like, I don't know what I'm using right now, but it does not feel like a missile weapon. Like, the model, the way that it looks, like the way that the weapon itself looks, it looks like a missile weapon. But that's literally the only thing that's kind of grounding it in the missile category for me. Otherwise, like, I forget that I'm using a missile weapon. Because it doesn't feel like one at all. It definitely seems like an interesting weapon. Damage per mag 33 essentially, versus Podgun, which has a reload speed of 6 and damage per mag of 36. So you get more damage for less reload speed if you equip Podgun. Along with better optimal range, better maximum range. You have infinite range with Podgun, by the way. Like, it has 0 range limits. The only potential benefit of Hornet over Podgun is that Hornet has a longer homing range, which is fine. It's a pro-con situation. It's the sort of thing where I would not choose Hornet over Podgun on most things, but I would on some mechs. I would genuinely choose Hornet over Podgun on some mechs. Depends on how the heavier energy variants feel. But anyway, yeah, it's a very interesting situation. I don't see Hornet replacing Podgun for most people, but overall it has my attention. I think when I started this video out, I already kind of knew how it behaved. I already knew what it did, but I kind of had it in my mind that it was a bit of a disappointment. It was the sort of thing that I would probably never use. I don't necessarily think that's the case anymore. Anyway, yeah, this is a very interesting weapon overall. It still does not feel like a missile weapon. Like, I keep forgetting that it's a missile weapon. But yeah, you guys can let me know what your thoughts on it are in the comments. Otherwise, that will be it for me. Appreciate y'all. Take care.